Yeah, there are a number of things I would say. I think the first thing is Canada is increasingly secular. There are many different indicators. I talk about this in my recent book, The Meaning of Sunday, The Practice of Belief in a Secular Age. But if you look at some of the quantitative indicators of people who attend religious services, people who claim belief in God or a supernatural being, those who identify with a religion, across the board, adults, teenagers, those who are attending on a weekly basis, those who say they identify, those who say they believe, those figures are declining. And those who say they never attend, who don't identify, who don't at all believe, these are increasing, and it is most pronounced among teenagers. So, for example, 1 in 2 Canadian teenagers never attend religious services today. 1 in 3 Canadian teenagers say they have no religion. If you want to know where a religious group is going, you look to your young people. It is very rare that people convert later on in life. It doesn't mean it's impossible, and we could all think of anecdotal stories where that's happened. But on the whole, you look to your young people. So Canada is moving in a progressive and increasing secular direction. The same is happening in the United States, but not at the rate and speed where Canada is. Canada is kind of between the United States and Europe in terms of where we are on that religious and cultural continuum. So I would say secularization is a dominant narrative. It's something that I argue is part of our reality in Canada in this book. Second, the rise of people who say they have no religion represents 1 in 3 Canadian teenagers, 1 in 4 Canadian adults. It's the fastest growing quote-unquote religious group in Canada and the modern Western world. It's growing rapidly in the United States, in Western Europe, in Australia, and so forth. And so trying to understand what is this group? How do we understand how they think about the world? To say you have no religion does not mean that you're an atheist, though there are some points of overlap there. There actually are signs of religious belief and practice and so forth among those who say they have no religion, but there is a distinct way of viewing the world. And I think trying to understand who and what that group is, how nuns are similar or different in Canada versus the United States, is an important indicator, but it is a dominant trend. The rise of those who say they have no religion, and all indications suggest that this will probably continue to grow in the not too distant future. A third trend, I would say, pertains to Christian identification. Christianity is the lead religion in Canada. When you ask Canadians, what religion do you identify with? 67% of Canadians say Christianity. However, over the last decade, this has diminished over 10 percentage points. Over a year ago, it was about 76% who said they identified as Christian. So I think the take-home point here is that Christianity is the lead religion in terms of identification, but it is waning. And we should anticipate that to diminish in the years and decades ahead. What does that mean for local churches then, when fewer and fewer Canadians in your neighborhoods, in your cities, in your communities have even a passing reference to Christianity? Right? A generation ago, we could take for granted that people would know who Jesus was, who denied Jesus 3 times, all these kinds of things. There isn't that cultural memory relative to Christianity. And so I think that's an important trend to grapple with. The fourth thing that I would say pertains to immigration. There's a lot of discourse in society today that says we are a highly religiously diverse society, which is partially true, but it's not entirely true. Christianity is and continues to be the #1 religion among immigrants to Canada today. Almost 50% of immigrants to Canada identify as Christian. They are, in fact, keeping Christianity afloat in Canada, particularly in Catholic and evangelical settings. That said, we are seeing the influx and the growth of non-Christian religious traditions, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, Sikhism, and so forth. Only 7.2% of the Canadian population today identifies themselves as part of a non-Christian religious tradition, up from 6% a decade ago. Now, it's an impressive number when you look at the actual numbers of Muslims and Sikhs and Hindus, etc., in certain pockets of the country. But as a whole, we're talking about less than 10% of the entire Canadian population identifies with any of the non-Christian religious traditions. When you add them all together, 7%. So we are not as religiously diverse as many think we are. We are becoming more religiously diverse. But Christianity is a prominent part of that discussion when it comes to immigration. And so these are some of the trends moving forward. How will local churches respond to and engage the immigration flow? That has notable impacts for local congregations. And so I would say overall, those are some of the dominant trends to pay attention to in Canada. And some of these things are obviously happening in the United States as well. I think there's some similarities on those things.